Congresswoman Tlaib is suggesting that she shouldn't be prosecuting these individuals that Nessel says broke the law, and that she's only doing it because she's Jewish.
Rashida Tlaib saying that Dana Nessel is pursuing charges because she's Jewish is an anti-Semitic thing to say.
Only one problem. Rashida Tlaib never said that. This lie was repeated on CNN over and over and over. It got so bad that the writer of the article, that is the genesis for this idea that Tlaib said those things, came out to criticize Jake Tapper, CNN, and others for spreading this propaganda. So I'm going to break down in this video exactly what happened, including several clips from CNN showing just how out of hand this got, including the so-called apology from Jake Tapper, which was not an apology, but instead another opportunity for him to criticize Rashida Tlaib, or I should say bring someone else on to do it. This story is so frustrating, but I gotta say it's been cathartic breaking this down to help showcase to all of you how full of shit all of this is. So let me start here with the beginning here. So the CNN clip, this is Jake Tapper talking to Michigan Governor Whitmer, and watch this exchange.
Your state's Attorney General, Dana Nessel, charged almost a dozen individuals from the University of Michigan over the anti-Israel protests. Among the charges, attempted ethnic intimidation, assaulting or obstructing a police officer, and on and on. These are pro-Palestinian protesters who are being punished and prosecuted. Michigan Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, who is Palestinian, she called the charges from Nessel, who is Jewish, shameful. And Tlaib said, quote, "It seems that the Attorney General decided if the issue was Palestine, she was going to treat it differently, and that alone speaks volumes about possible biases within the agency she runs," unquote. Nessel responded by saying, quote, "Rashida Tlaib should not use my religion to imply I cannot perform my job fairly as Attorney General. It's anti-Semitic and wrong," unquote. Do you think that Tlaib's suggestion that Nessel's office is biased was anti-Semitic?
Listen, Jake, you know what? All I can say is that I know that our Jewish community is in pain, as is our Palestinian and Muslim and Arab communities in Michigan. I know that seeing the incredible toll that this war has taken on both communities has been really challenging and difficult, and my heart breaks for so many. But as governor, my job is to make sure that both these communities are protected and respected under the law in Michigan, and that's exactly what I'm going to stay focused on.
But do you think Attorney General Nessel is not doing her job? Because Congresswoman Tlaib is suggesting that she shouldn't be prosecuting these individuals that Nessel says broke the law, and that she's only doing it because she's Jewish, and the protesters are not. That's quite an accusation. Do you think it's true?
Like I said, Jake, I'm not going to get in the middle of this.
This is absolutely insane. At no point did Rashida Tlaib say or even imply that Nessel is going after these protesters because she is Jewish. The bias at the heart of the criticism from Rashida Tlaib has nothing at all to do with religion or ethnicity. So I'm going to show you, this is the original article, and I'll get to what the writer of the article came out to say. But they wrote here, Tlaib also criticized Nessel, who is the first Jewish, this is their writing, Nessel, the first Jewish person elected Attorney General of Michigan, for what she believes is a biased approach to the protest. "We've had the right to dissent, the right to protest," Tlaib says. "We've done it for climate, the immigrant rights movement, for Black lives, and even around issues of injustice among water shutoffs. But it seems that the Attorney General decided if the issue was Palestine, she was going to treat it differently. And that alone speaks volumes about possible biases within the agency she runs." This has nothing to do with her being Jewish. So, Governor Whitmer, before I get to showcasing that even further, Jake Tapper tweeting out, after Whitmer got blowback for not criticizing Tlaib for something she didn't even say, Whitmer's office felt the need to come out and put this statement out saying the suggestion that AG Nessel would make charging decisions based on her religion as opposed to the rule of law is anti-Semitic, which again, Tlaib never said. AG Nessel has always conducted her work with integrity and followed the rule of law. We must all use our platform and voices to call out hateful rhetoric and racist tropes. So this is the writer of the original article that was cited here. I'm the reporter who interviewed Rashida Tlaib. She never said Nessel did this because she's Jewish. Never. You're spreading lies. Going further here, so he released a fact check on CNN for their crap, and in it he writes, Tlaib never once mentioned Nessel's religion or Judaism, but Metro Times pointed out in the story that Nessel is Jewish, and that appears to be the spark that led to the false claims. It also should be noted that the ACLU of Michigan criticized Nessel for charging peaceful protesters at the University of Michigan. The reason why this bias is being called out has nothing to do with religion, ethnicity. It's because of this. As the writer writes here, a lot of people have been asking me, how many other protesters have Nessel charged in her nearly 2 terms in office? I've been to at least a dozen protests in Detroit alone that had far more clashes with police, and Nessel never charged any of them. Why is this one different? This is the bias that is being called out. The fact that these other protests, where this journalist saw a lot worse going on, those protesters were never prosecuted. Yet in this case, they were. Why? That isn't saying, oh, it's because she's Jewish. It's pointing out a clear anti-Palestinian bias. This just, like, the bullshit, of course, went on. So this actually predates the CNN piece, but this helped to lead to this misinformation from Senator Jeremy Moss of Michigan. This is a disgusting charge of dual loyalty. Again, quoting the original piece where Tlaib never said anything about the fact that Nessel is Jewish. Disgusting charge of dual loyalty. Jews in America cannot fully uphold American ideals because we are fundamentally biased in favor of our religion over our citizenship. Tlaib continues to divide us into good Jews she accepts and bad Jews. She said nothing about Jewish people at all. Completely fabricated. Dana Nessel here, coming out a few days before the CNN piece. So this was quoted in the CNN video I showed you. Rashida's religion should not be used in a cartoon to imply that she's a terrorist. It's Islamophobic and wrong. Note how she can't even just say this without saying this. Just as Rashida should not use my religion to imply I cannot perform my job fairly as Attorney General. It's anti-Semitic and wrong. She never did. Again, complete fabrication. This appears to be a preemptive way to try and disregard any criticism over the fact that, for whatever reason, she decided to prosecute these protesters and not ones in the past who did a lot worse. Again, to be clear, I don't think any protesters should be prosecuted. But if you're going to go after ones that were more peaceful than ones in the past for other issues, it brings into question, why are you doing this? Again, nothing to do with you being Jewish, but it is to point out a clear anti-Palestinian bias. So Josh Kraushaar, who writes for Jewish Insider, also has a Fox News, a Fox Radio political analyst, quoting his piece here in Jewish Insider, saying, Tlaib has also claimed that Nessel is only charging the protesters because she's Jewish. Like, just the insane, absolute bullshit repeated again and again and again, despite the fact that the writer of the original piece says this was never said or even implied. So this is the full piece where, again, they're going after Governor Whitmer for not speaking out against Rashida Tlaib for a thing that she never said. Lena writing here, Rashida Tlaib said there is an anti-Palestinian bias among certain American institutions, and to prove her wrong, they're smearing her from newspapers to governors' mansions to the largest cable news networks. These places, these outlets are proving Rashida Tlaib's point. Dana Bash. Oh, we're not done with the CNN crap. No, Dana Bash comes out, this is on Monday, to have this conversation.
And now to a sad reality, and that is anti-Semitism is everywhere, and it comes from both ends of the political spectrum. But politicians sometimes sidestep calling it out when it comes from a member of their own party. We saw 2 examples on State of the Union yesterday. First, with Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, when my co-anchor Jake Tapper asked about a Democratic Congresswoman's accusation that the state's Jewish Attorney General was letting her religion influence her job. And then there was this exchange with Republican Senator Tom Cotton.
Are you comfortable with that? With Donald Trump saying if he loses preemptively, it's the fault of the Jews, a group already experiencing a rise of anti-Semitism in this country from the left and the right, but still preemptively it's the fault of the Jews?
Well, Jake, Donald Trump has been saying things like this for at least 11 months.
CNN loves to do this garbage, these false equivalencies. Oh, the left is just as bad as the right. Fighting for health care for all is just as bad as wanting to destroy Medicare. These are the exact same things. Oh, Tom Cotton defending Donald Trump for saying, for blaming the Jews for losing the election. Just the same thing as Rashida Tlaib saying a thing she never said, pointing out an obvious bias in the AG in their past non-prosecutions of protesters versus the ones now. Just exactly the same thing. It is insane to witness how this garbage just takes on a life of its own. And then these ideas are propagated. This idea out there that Rashida Tlaib is anti-Semitic because of this bullshit quotes being brought up again and again and again. Rashida Tlaib brought into these conversations about, oh, isn't she anti-Semitic? Oh, she really hates Jewish people, when she simply calls out the Israeli government and their mass atrocities. This garbage. This is how media generates these false ideas about who certain people are. Now, they don't do it all the time. CNN isn't always this bad. But this is a clear case where they are simply making crap up and repeating it over and over and over. So that next time you think about Rashida Tlaib, you think about these made-up quotes that most people are not going to see the fact check to. Now, that clip with Dana Bash goes on. She brings on David Chilean, or David Chilean. David Chilean is what my partner says to me when I'm on the couch. David Chilean. Stupid dad joke. All right, let me get to the rest of that clip. And I'm going to get some more. So Jake Tapper is going to get to his apology. It's not an apology, but I'm going to play the clip and break down the rest of this.
And that's what both of them did there. It's not very hard to say that Rashida Tlaib saying that Dana Nessel is pursuing charges because she's Jewish is an anti-Semitic thing to say. It is. Fareed Zakaria interviewed Hillary Clinton this weekend, and they had a fascinating exchange about Hillary Clinton's perception about those campus protests when she was teaching at Columbia last year in the aftermath of October 7th. She had no problem calling it out, even though some of those young supporters may have been Democrats in their political ideology, calling that out as something other than critiquing the Israeli government as what it was, which was, some anti-Semitism coursing through that. So
some more incredible bullshit there. Of course, repeating the quote that never happened. And then this comment about protesters. I saw this tweet yesterday, and this is also a quote from a New York Magazine piece with Ta-Nehisi Coates. And it's important context here. So Timothy Foster writing here, I thought the interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates was very good, but I think he absolutely nails it here. Hemming and hawing about the language used by protesters is an appalling act of equivocation used to dodge a clear fact. The protesters are on the right side of history. So Ta-Nehisi Coates, the tweet here, or the quote, the fact of the matter is, he said, that kid up at Columbia, whatever dumb shit they're saying, whatever slogan I would not say that they would use, they are more morally correct than some mother effers that have won Pulitzer Prizes and National Magazine Awards and are the most decorated and powerful journalists. I'm looking at you, David Chilean and Dana Bash and Jake Tapper and others who on and on criticize, pick out a couple of dingoes in protest and be like, oh, look over this represents the entire protest, and point out, quotes that don't look good or are bad, and use that to characterize the entire protest, as opposed to looking at what the protest is actually about. Looking at the mass destruction that the Israeli government has caused. Not to mention, even before the events of the past year, the ongoing settlement expansion and the occupation. That is a lot worse. Much, much, much worse than what some random kid at Columbia is saying or spray painting. But again, the false equivalencies. So again, the writer of the original piece from the Detroit News writing here, let me be clear, Detroit Metro News, right? I know there's several Detroit papers. Detroit Metro Times. The false claims from State Jeremy State Senator Jeremy Allen Moss, Attorney General Dana Nessel, CNN, Jewish Insider, and the ADL's Jonathan Greenblatt, who was the only person I've seen that actually deleted the initial tweet. So he came out as well to claim Tlaib said the thing she didn't say, and then I ended up deleting his tweet when he was called out. Were based on an interview I did with Tlaib. I know what was said during the interview, and it was not what was characterized. Here we go. Jake Tapper, back at it again. This time, though, according to Matthew Petty here, walks back his claims. Does he? Let's watch this exchange. Also worth noting who he is talking to here. Dana Nessel. An interesting decision to attempt to walk back your claims while interviewing the person that propagated the lie about Tlaib.
I should note that I misspoke yesterday when asking a follow-up of Governor Whitmer, who I asked about this. I was trying to characterize your views of Tlaib's comments. What do you make of those today, noting that Congresswoman Tlaib never explicitly said that your bias was because of your religion, and so it's unfair for you to make that allegation?
All right, before I get to Nessel's response here, which, shocking, it's terrible, look at how Jake Tapper frames this question. So first, he mischaracterized what Tlaib said. No, he made up a thing that she never said. Made it up. And by the way, made it up by quoting the person you were talking to, Dana Nessel, who tweeted this out, saying, Tlaib should not use my religion to imply I cannot perform my job fairly. She never did that. If you're going to, which it's fair to point out, hey, is it, you never, Tlaib never said that. So what do you say to those comments? Sure. Yes. Good. Say that. But also point out the reason why Tlaib was calling out the bias and why she wasn't implying it had anything to do with Nessel being Jewish, but instead Tlaib was implying, hey, look at the other protests where you didn't prosecute anybody, where there was more violence. Yet this one, where there was less, you decided to prosecute. That is the actual critique here. And that is not brought up in the question. An actual journalist would properly represent the actual critique that Tlaib had. Now, here is Nessel's response.
Well, a couple things. First of all, in 2022, when my opponent accused me of being a groomer and a pedophile, everyone understood that those were homophobic remarks because I happen to be gay, right? I didn't have to explain it to people. Rashida Tlaib is an individual who's well known for making inflammatory and incendiary remarks that are anti-Semitic in nature. So this isn't the first time that we would have heard these words out of her mouth. I think it's very clear to everybody exactly what she was saying.
Yeah, it was clear if you read the actual piece where she's bringing up the fact that you have not prosecuted other protests. This, and again, furthering this propaganda, Jake Tapper brings on Dana Nessel to further propagate against Rashida Tlaib. The idea that she's anti-Semitic. Zero examples. Oh, she's known for this. Okay. Examples, please. Do you have any? What, she criticized the Israeli government? What, she's calling out mass atrocity? She's pointing out the fact that the U.S. is supplying weapons while the Israeli government is carrying out these mass atrocities? Can you name anything that Tlaib has said that is actually anti-Semitic? You would bring it up. It would be a point you would make if you could. You did not make the point. Ben Spielberg here, tweeting out, rather than actually apologize and try to make amends for spreading a lie, Jake Tapper provides Dana Nessel with a platform to continue smearing Rashida Tlaib. Incredible irresponsibility from Tapper and dishonesty from Nessel. If this was any other topic, Jake Tapper could very well lose his job. Making up quotes about what somebody said. If Tapper made up a quote that Trump said, that J.D. Vance said, that Kamala Harris said, that Joe Biden said, made it up and continued it. I said, I mischaracterized, but then brought somebody on to continue propagating the very lie that you helped to push. But because it's the only Palestinian in Congress, because it's someone on the left, Rashida Tlaib, they're allowed to do this kind of garbage. And who cares, right? It's incredible to witness. Meanwhile, you have actual politicians like Bernie Sanders pushing for what really matters. And again, the media wants to focus on, a protester said something that was bad in a mass protest against mass atrocity. Rashida Tlaib said this thing she never said. How about focusing more on what the Israeli government is doing and how there are so few politicians actually trying to push back against it, to try and stop the destruction? Bernie Sanders tweeting out, Netanyahu's right-wing extremist government is violating international and U.S. law and has created a humanitarian disaster in Gaza. Today I announced that I will file joint resolutions of disapproval to stop the sale of U.S. arms to Israel and end our complicity in this disaster. As of recording this, Tapper still has not properly apologized. I haven't seen Dana Bash apologize. I would be shocked if they came out to give an actual proper apology. Because where is the pressure point here? Why would they care? Again, any other topic, practically any other politician, unless it's like, Ilhan Omar, they can do this too as well. AOC, they can do this too. But anybody with proper institutional power, with proper corporate power, they'd be called out and have to apologize immediately. This case, it doesn't matter.